O fair maiden, why is it that you weep? Oscar walked down the steps to the lower garden, surrounded by stone walkways, which he now descended from. Within it stood pillars supporting another garden situated between the top of the research hall, giving access to the astral clock tower. He walked among the lumenwood flowers, researchers, and the magnificently strange celestial emissaries. They continually arose from the earth below, much like flowers on their sickly slender legs, and remained standing in place. Occasionally they would meander around the garden, always emitting a low, reverberating sound of otherworldly qualities, seemingly from somewhere within their bloated heads. A sound that seemed to be no sound at all, as it cannot be replicated with tones, voices, or instruments. There was neither a logical reason to how they produced the sound, since the blue bubble-headed emissaries had no normal mouth. At least not one that could convey speech. No, the sound was likely a product of their heads, enlarged orbs that seemed to support themselves, floating in space and possessing countless glowing dots beneath the skin. They did not appear to be making the sound voluntarily. Rather, it was an ongoing process, interpreting something that was already there, much like how the science behind runecraft was known to do. Hearing a sound and translating it. And finally, it seemed the sound was given to them by emissaries of the heaven, instruments of its composition. Thus was posed the question, who was the orchestra's conductor? As he examined the researchers taking notes and samples from the emissaries, an armed guard stepped in between him as he was growing near to one of the strange emissaries.
Pardon me, master, but they can sometimes behave strangely. For your safety, I suggest you keep a distance, so as to not provoke them.
Has there been any incidents? The man stepped towards the wide stair Oscar had just stepped off from.
Not any grand incidents, but they have at times started flailing with their arms.
What is the cause?
They believe it is some form of reaction to their surroundings. They have to be agitated, it seems. Otherwise, they pay little attention to anything but, well...
Very good. Carry on then.
Master?
They nodded to one another. The man remained by the foot of the stairs while Oscar continued up. He walked over to Mayhew, who sat slumped in a grand rolling chair by the edge of the stone walkway, looking out over the garden. His back was uncomfortably hunched forward, and his mouth was slightly open. His eyes remained unseen beneath the blindfold cap. He was the reason he had gone over to the Celestial Garden. He had hoped that upon appearing, his friend would acknowledge him with a friendly wave like he used to do. But he never did. He just sat, captivated by the revelations of divine insight. Oscar told himself that he should envy him, that he should desire to be the one chosen by the goddess, that he should also imbibe the phantasms and experience her knowledge, to become as captivated as Mayhew was. But the thoughts never transitioned into action. Mayhew. His head twitched and he closed his mouth.
Oh, Oscar. Well.
So, perhaps
you know.
He was silenced by the low and drawn-out speech of Mayhew, who he did not want to interrupt.
I think I have figured it out.
His right hand raised and was floating around in the air in front of him. His finger lazily pointed out, like he was trying to identify something unseen in the garden.
Why the music is so sad. Yes. But it might end soon.
It will end? When? Do you know?
Huh? Oh. Not the whole thing. Just that part. I think it will shift soon.
Oscar leaned back, feeling a bit disappointed. Yes, of course. You say it's sad. The sound of the emissaries?
Well, the sound, the song of our fair maiden. It is a sad song, a sad symphony.
His speech ebbed out as he tried to put more focus on his hand gestures. With the talk of music in mind, Oscar thought his movements started to more and more resemble that of a composer finding the rhythm in his orchestra. While he could not tell the pace or how it sounded, it seemed that Mayhew was growing more assertive and precise in his flowing movements, and not as searching. Yes? How come you say that?
I don't know. That's just how it sounds to me. I have contemplated it for a long time now, you see. And I think our goddess is sad. But let me tell you that our efforts will banish it. I hear it, clear as day. Our efforts are altering the tune, the rhythm, yes. We play our own instruments in this
divine composition. A new instrument that I know the fair lady will love. She will hear it, and oh, will she weep. His movements became larger and more sweeping. A glowing light and astonished, loud voices caught Oscar's attention, and he looked towards the garden. One of the emissaries had raised his large hands on the stick arms in the air. Strands were slowly growing out of its head, emitting a celestial white and bluish light. They looked like thick hair strands flowing in water, each with a glowing orb at the tip. Ah! Weep with joy! Mayhew twisted his hand, and simultaneously, as if he conjured a spectacle, a growing darkness amassed in seconds over the emissary's head, then exploded with bright light. Oscar looked away from the blinding flash. Then he heard a scream of pain, which was silenced unnervingly quickly. Mayhew started laughing, and when he looked back, the emissary had lowered its arms, but retained the floating strands. A man lay crumpled on the ground with many others hunched or leaning over him. He was evidently dead by their strong reactions. The researchers rushed away, while the guards remained locked onto the perpetrator emissary. Oscar just looked at his friend, laughing so he was tossing and turning in his seat. Ah, that was beautiful. Beautifully done, my lady. Never has a mortal creature been graced by such sounds. Gathered in the lofty, round garden of the grand cathedral, just above the orphanage and leading into the astral clock tower, choir members stood with loch shields in hand. The further their inquiry progressed, the nature of the arcane cosmos revealed a volatile side that no physical means provided proper shielding towards. Thus the Loch shield was utilized on this night. Fashioned with blue glass in the image of the Great Lake, the great Master Willem left his secrets with. Now its augur, protecting them against any harmful forces. For this night, together with their fair maiden Ebrietas, would be the night when they reach out with a message to the cosmos. Tuning the celestial strings on which the emissaries played the heavenly melody, which tonight the choir would sing out a powerful message with the very daughter of the cosmos. With their shields outward, facing the emissaries surrounding them, stood 7 choir members, encircling Oscar and Mayhew, along with 2 other proficient mystics. Mayhew sat in his chair, slumped backwards, one arm hanging over the armrest. Were it not for his faint breathing, one could presume him dead. Outside the circling emissaries was a secondary line of protective choir that warded the bell ringers. Oscar looked up into the clear night, seeing the stars above them. They did indeed feel very near. "Everything in order?" he called out, and one member of each line answered in confirmation that it was. "Is everything ready?" The exact same response in the same manner followed. "Splendid. Then we begin." He and the other two sat down in the chairs around Mayhew in the middle, facing him. "O fair maiden, let ye partake in communion," he said ceremoniously, and out from the darkness of the entryway came a shining beacon, the white-garbed silhouette. A woman, walking slowly, sickly yet gracefully. Her uncanny pace looked forcibly animate, more so than he had thought. She was wrapped in a grand, white ceremonial cloth, drenched and sticking to her naked form and hanging heavily from her arms, as well as dragging behind her. The hood hung closely from her head, and white, organic, tentacle-like veins hung from under the hood, obscuring the face. Her arms were outstretched, the light reflecting in her stark white palms. It was the goddess, the fair maiden, the daughter of the cosmos, Ebrietas, here with them in this possessed form to aid their endeavor. She stopped before stepping onto the grass of the garden where the outer circle was, raising her arms slowly and shakily upwards and letting out a slow, hissing hymn, a haunting, lonely arias that was the very manifestation of her despair and yearning. With this, the bells began to ring, about 5 seconds in between each clang, all rung in attunement with another, producing what sounded like a singular, resonant clang. Like mimicking the fair maiden, the emissaries raised their hands while the tendrils emerged from their heads. Now was the time to send them off. He shut his eyes. In the darkness, he let the sound envelop him, carry him into a different space of sensation. The hymn of the goddess dominating and leading the music. Then came a sound that almost caused him to open his eyes, for he had never heard such a noise and could not have prepared himself for it, as he knew it was Mayhew making it. he had started letting out a basal monotone melody, a single vocal note, providing a base for the hymn of the fair lady. After steeling himself in this new soundscape, he felt himself ascending. He felt as if it was impossible to open his eyes, for as he had become, he had none. He was no longer in possession of his body, but still felt the wind as he was floating upwards, all the sounds carrying him to the sky. The reverberation of the emissaries became more pronounced, but never overtook the bells and the singing. The darkness started to clear like a fog, or smoke receding before him to reveal a great space, a void of stars and dancing light. Now they reached out, just as it was. The cosmos was very near. The ringing of the bells overtook all other sounds, until they were all he heard. He could see their resonance surrounding him and rippling through the surroundings, like influencing the fabrics of space. It was dreadfully empty, nothing to be seen or heard, except for their own calling. As he continued to be raised up into the reaches, the stars and colors grew scarce, until there was only a void, a blackness that gradually made a fear creep upon him. As it reached the climax, and he thought he could not take it, a shape grew visible. It was a tiny dot of light, growing in visibility. A circle emerged from the darkness. Indeed, a hole in the void through which light was shining from, encircled by a fainter ring that stood out in the darkness. It gave the impression of an eye, as seen from the inside. Was there a familiar image he saw in the hole? Before he could make any conclusions, he heard the solitary hymn of Ebrietas and was pulled backwards, passing the cosmos at a much more rapid pace. The glowing ring, the hole in the sky, was now in the process of erupting as the resonance made it grow violent and break its circle form. As he descended down, he was just about to witness it burst when he opened his eyes. Now being solely within himself, he could still see the turbulent orb as it erupted just above Mayhew, who had arched his head straight towards the sky, eyes and mouth wide open. A loud boom erupted as it exploded into tinier fragments of itself that scattered in all directions. It produced a white, bright light as the fragments rained down at them. The surprised attendants raised their shields to ward off the explosive fragments. 2 of the emissaries were hit and were tossed into the outer protective ring. Being directly under the exploding orb, its devastation did not affect their area, but a wide reach around them. As the light faded and everyone peered up towards where the light had been, there was nothing.
What happened?
A voice called out. Oscar had no answer to what had happened. nor did those that had seen it with him. The three of them sat petrified. Mayhew was now completely still. Yet his gaze was still compelled to look upwards, even in death. The emissaries had returned to idly stand in their waviness. There came an inhuman, gurgled sob. The woman had sunk to her knees, her hands reaching under the hood to hold her face in sadness. Oscar felt tears on his own face upon seeing her, grieving, despairing like she had always done. Only now he knew why. A call beyond. One of the secret rites of the choir. Long ago, the Healing Church used phantasms to reach a lofty plane of darkness, but failed to make contact with the outer reaches of the cosmos. The rite failed to achieve its intended purpose, but instead created a small, exploding star, now a powerful part of the choir's arsenal. At times, failure is the mother of invention.